now we're going to get to the serious part. You have to be ready for this. And there's no joke here. This is why we do this teaching. The greatest setup of all time has been perpetrated on all of the world. That setup has been perpetrated and pushed on us for about 2,000 years now. The setup is to lead you away from Yeshua and the Torah. That setup is Jesus Christ. That is your anti-Messiah. When I first was going to do this teaching, I said, what are you going to teach me? I'm going to tell everybody Jesus is the Antichrist. I'm not saying Yeshua. The false fraud. We're talking about fraudulent. Remember we were earlier talking about fraudulent? The fraud that has been perpetrated on the world is the Jesus that you've been sold, who is peace, love, wonderful, hippie freak, and eat whatever you want, and don't worry, everything's great, and don't worry about what my father said to do. You know what I'm saying? This is the fraud. Yeah. Okay. I don't care if you say Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yehoshua, all that. The Jesus has to go. Why? Because Jesus is coming. That's what it's talking about here. That's your lawless one. He's not going to be the Mahdi and this Imam and all this other thing. That the world is loving that idea. Because it says here, even the elect would be, all of the quote-unquote elect are ready for this Imam to come. They're all ready for the anti-Messiah to be a Muslim. So how's that going to fool anybody? Not going to fool anybody. Is the elect going to be fooled by a Muslim Messiah? No. But if Jesus showed up, some people, even in the Messianic, would be like, oh, I always knew. And Jesus is coming. Remember I told you I would tell you for sure that you would know when Mashiach is coming? When Jesus gets here, you know he's coming soon. That's how you'll know. That's a guarantee. Jesus got to come first. Let me explain how this all works out. To be a false Messiah, you have to do what everybody expects the Messiah to do. Right? So what does everybody expect the Messiah to do? They expect the Messiah to beat up a false Messiah. Get me the salt shaker and the pepper shaker, please. This is how I first taught this in Canada. I was sitting at a table with some of the congregation from Beth Shalom in Winnipeg. And the way I did this was with a water bottle, which I have, and a salt and pepper shaker. Now, for those listening on the audio, this won't work as good, but if you're on video, you're going to get it. Okay. So we need somebody to be the false Messiah. They kind of look like the Messiah. We haven't read the verses yet, but we know that the devil himself would look like an angel of light, and his minions like ministers of light. We're going to read those verses here in a little bit. So he's going to look real good. He's going to look like the Messiah in every simple way. He's going to exalt himself above all things, call himself Elohim, sit in the dwelling place and everything. So he's got to look like Messiah. And he's got to beat up a false Messiah. So really, that's the fake out. So we need a false Messiah. That's the setup of this Muslim Imam guy. Okay, so this Mahdi, this Imam shows up, the Mahdi, and all of Christianity is now expecting Jesus to come and save everybody. And when he does, what do you think is going to happen? They're all going to flip out. They're just going to completely fall out. Yeah. And now we're in worse trouble than we were before. We, the Torah observers. Okay? So this false one comes in, and right now we see how Muslims are torturing Christians and all this other stuff with Christians, right? So that's all, everybody's being set up for this. Jesus shows up and takes this guy out. Everybody's all excited. Even the elect could fall for that. Signs and wonders, abundant food, peace in the world, all for a little period of time. And then we really get into a trap. That's the trap. And then Yeshua has to show up and handle that. Okay? The living waters. There's the setup going on. For 2,000 years, we've been sold. Not just sold. Do you realize that the world had no interest in this Jesus guy, that the Roman Catholics and the other Christians had to kill people and at the sword point to force them to buy into that guy? When Yeshua was here, thousands were drawn to him. After he left, and the real true disciples, thousands and thousands were drawn to him. The Jesus guy was then thrown at the world after the early Christians or the early believers were all killed and stuff. Nobody wanted that guy. They had to be forced to have that guy. Made Muslims today look like altar boys. Okay? I mean, they would burn you. I mean, they did worse things than any of these guys are doing. Okay? If you would not confess Jesus. Okay? I mean, it was sword point, burning, threats, everything. The world is being brainwashed, set up, indoctrinated, getting ready for this guy. What do you hear within Christian music and in the world? It's all about Jesus, not about the Father. We worship Jesus, we love Jesus, we pray to Jesus, we thank Jesus. Everything's Jesus. Am I wrong? Okay, that's right, right? That's the way it is. Because he's being exalted about everything. What did Yeshua say? Don't come to me. I want to point you to him. It's not about me. It's about my Father. Is that what you see in Christianity? They are all about this cultish, just raptured sort of thinking. They're just adoring of Jesus. There's no thought of the Father. There's no thought of the commandments. There's no thought of any of that stuff. It's Jesus did everything for you. Jesus, it's all Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That's the setup. And if you can't break out of that mindset, you could fall for that setup. Because I'm telling you right now, he's coming. Okay, everyone's going, Rabbi Bergson said Jesus is coming. Yeah, he is. But he ain't Mashiach. He's the false Mashiach. It's like taking an ugly costume, a real pretty good looking costume, and sticking it over Mashiach. They dressed him up in this false thing, and they paraded him around, but it's not Mashiach. Mashiach is the one we read about here that loves the law, teaches the Torah. He's the legalist. He did everything his Father said. He only wants you to focus on his Father. He doesn't want any attention for himself. That's not the Jesus we're sold. We're told, beware false prophets. What are we told that this false one's going to be? He's going to be teaching against the law. Has anybody in the history of the world been more effective on getting people to break the commandments than Jesus? The personification. Not the real Mashiach, but this created image from the Catholic Church or whoever created it in the first place, the devil, obviously. Okay? This false represent. Has anything ever been more successful at anomy or anti-Mashiach behavior? I mean, that's the whole mission now that you see in these Christian teachers is to make sure, they're preaching to people that never have a thought to do the law, and they're preemptively striking because they're afraid they may run into you one day. And so they got to make sure they're ready for you not to fall into this lie called Torah observance. Lie, it's the only truth there is. Amen. Okay? So this is the whole thing that we're reading about here. It's all warning us about this Jesus is coming. Now when I said that, remember this verse again. He says, look, let no one deceive you in any way because the falling away is to come first and the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, the son of destruction. There's going to be a falling away. When is that falling away going to happen? Well, when Jesus gets here and everybody goes back to him. The ones that are not strong enough to stand up and go, no, that ain't it, because he doesn't match with this book, and he's teaching against law and telling everybody Christmas and Easter is wonderful, and eat anything you want. It says here, this is the one who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called Elohim. What is called Elohim? The law, the Torahs of Elohim, of the Father. He says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Love your Yahweh, your Elohim with all your heart, with all your might. Keep the commandments. He begs them all throughout Genesis to Deuteronomy about 400 million times to keep his commandments. So that's what's of Elohim. He says, or that is worshipped. So he elevates and exalts above all that is worshipped. What is more highly worshipped in Christianity than Jesus? There's nothing. The Father's not worshipped. It's Jesus. He's adored, worshipped, talked. That's all you hear. As a matter of fact, there are ministries that have written books and things called it's all about Jesus. Let's continue. He says, so that he sits as Elohim in the dwelling place of Elohim. Now, this is metaphorical and literal. We know that we're looking forward to the sign of the abomination of desolation set up in the holy place. I believe this guy, the Jesus guy, is going to, when they reset up the altar, stand in that place and say, I am Elohim. But there's also a more metaphorical thing. Do you not know that you are the dwelling place? If you got Jesus in your heart, you're fulfilling this verse. You are allowing this false one to sit in the dwelling place of Elohim. Paul tells you, do you not know that you are the dwelling place of Elohim? 1 Corinthians 6:19. So this is really important that we're getting this. This is scary stuff. This is heavy stuff. Okay? This is not game playing stuff. This is not me just trying to be, sort of stirring the pot or whatever. This is the real deal. This is the warning. This is me trying to be a prophet. I'm not claiming to be a prophet. You know what I'm saying? Crying aloud, sparing not, speaking with authority. Please receive this. Jesus is coming. He's not Yeshua. That's all. I don't know how else to say it. Jesus is coming. He's not Yeshua.